Ahead at the international desk, a crucial summit on the migrant crisis. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders have a feisty debate, and North Korea threatens a nuclear strike. Hello and welcome to the International Desk. I'm Lynda Kinkade. We start with emergency talks aimed at easing Europe's migrant crisis. EU leaders and Turkey's Prime Minister are meeting in Brussels trying to forge a plan to stop the flow of migrants into the continent. Most pass through Turkey and end up in Greece, hoping to head north. But with many nations along the Balkan land route closing their borders, the migrants end up stuck in Greece with no place to turn. Senior international correspondent Arwa Damon is witnessing firsthand the misery at one border camp in northern Greece, and international diplomatic editor Nic Robertson is following the crisis talks from our London bureau. We'll start with Arwa first. Just give us a sense of what you've been seeing.
Well, Lynda, as Europe tries to ease the burden on itself, or at least control the flow of the refugees coming through its borders and its various end destination countries, by shutting down the route, what they're doing is creating even more miserable situations for those refugees and migrants that are hoping to reach what they believed would at least be a better life. There are about 13,000 people stuck here right now at what was a transit area that was built to at most house 1,500, and that's why you see all these brightly colored tents that have been donated, that have sprung out, and this extends far, a few kilometers back in. People are beginning to get at this stage very tired, very frustrated with this whole entire process, because there is very little information that is flowing towards them in terms of explaining to them why it is that they're being held up and what the logic behind it is going to be. There are also great concerns that because of the sheer volume of humanity that is here, children are beginning to get sick. The sanitary conditions are not built, were not established to house these many people at this stage. And you have the United Nations in and of itself saying that it isn't quite understanding the logic behind what is taking place and why it is, for example, that Macedonia at best is only letting a few hundred people through. So you have an entire population at this makeshift camp that effectively right now is living in limbo, with about 35,000 refugees and migrants at this stage in Greece and 1,500, Lynda, arriving every day.
Yeah, absolutely incredible numbers. And I just want to bring in Nic on this. This is obviously a huge discussion today among EU leaders, and it seems that the EU is putting additional pressure on Turkey to do more.
They are. More than $3 billion have been set aside to help Turkey. There's a feeling in Europe, amongst European leaders, that Turkey isn't doing enough. One of the things, if you sort of take a little step back and look at this, the way that the European Union is tackling this migrant problem is to cut the flow of migrants to Europe and cut it in two specific places. One is the Aegean Sea between Turkey and Greece. NATO is deployed there. The idea is they work with the coast guards of both countries, but the pressure is on Turkey to, number one, stop people trying to cross that sea, but then take back all those that are getting out into the sea that will be picked up, take those back. And the other place that the EU wants to cut this flow of migrants is what's known as the Western Balkans route, and that is they want to shut down that route. We're looking here all the way from Turkey through Greece to Macedonia, Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, and all the way to Austria. If they can cut that and then cut off the route in the sea as well, that will stop that flood of migrants getting as far as Europe. But that leaves the problem in Turkey, so it's convincing the Turks that they have a responsibility and helping them to do that, and also Greece, humanitarian aid additional up to 70 million euros there to help them with the situation. But the burden is really being put here on Greece and on Turkey.
And as these EU countries and Turkey look at various solutions, the migrants, of course, are stuck in limbo, as Arwa said. Arwa, you've been speaking to those migrants. What are they saying to you about the EU's response?
Well, they keep coming up and asking us if there has been any concrete outcome to these meetings that they are very well aware are taking place at this stage. And they do realize that their destiny basically lies in the hands of these various different European leaders. And another thing to mention at this stage, too, to Nic's point about pressure being put on Turkey, Turkey has cracked down, according to the government, to the best that it can at this stage. But here's the other thing, too, Lynda, is that a lot of these people, they didn't make it across the water on their first or second or third attempt because they were caught by the Turkish Coast Guard, or because in some cases their boats were beginning to capsize and they were saved by the Turkish Coast Guard. Most of these people took anywhere between 5 to 7 attempts to actually get across, and that brings up this whole larger issue, and that is that people will keep trying to get across no matter how many attempts they have to make. And that is why it is so vital, of course, to create an alternative way to either provide them safe haven in some areas, provide them an alternative route, or really resolve the crux of this issue, and that is trying to solve the war zones, which realistically speaking is not going to be happening anytime soon. But all these measures that we've been seeing put into place by trying to shut down these land routes, by trying to crack down on the sea route, it's not necessarily stopping people from coming, it's just making the journey that much harder.
Yeah, it's a good point. Arwa Damon in Domini, Greece, and Nic Robertson in London. Thank you both very much.